Hi everyone, it's Rob Jurcec from OneKloudX. Today, what I'd like to do is take you through just a very high level demo of NetSuite. Just take you through the UI, take you through some of the dashboards and reporting components for a particular role, take you through some of the drill down capabilities with NetSuite from the dashboard, and also some of the other elements that you'll find quite useful if you're just beginning to start to play with NetSuite or start looking at it as an actual product. So some of the actual areas of the demo I'll focus on today, it's going to be a quick demo, is the user interface and the user roles and how you can define a menu function across each of the user roles, hide menus and the rest, and how that could operate for each and every user in your organization depending on their role. I'll take you through some of the functionality around the drill down and how you can go right from the dashboard all the way down to the underlying transaction record, coupled with some of the dashboard reporting and analysis that you've got. So let me start off with taking you into NetSuite and hopefully you enjoy the demo. So here I am here. I'm just logged into NetSuite. So for those who haven't seen NetSuite before, to username, password, you log in, two-factor authentication. And once you're in, basically on the top, you've got the global search. Now that global search can be anything from a customer name or a contact or a transaction or an item or whatever it is. So if you just type anything in, so let's use the word Frank, you will find anything in the database that has Frank in it. So that's an employee Frank, a JPEG image, it's got Frank in it, a vendor that's called Franklin Industries. But if you want to restrict it further and just say, show me all the vendors or even vend and show me all the vendors for in NetSuite, you'll end up finding Franklin Industries. If you change it and say, show me an employee with Frank in it, you'll have the two employees with Frank. And then you can either jump into it, you can either jump in and edit mode if you've got edit mode and so on and so forth. So that's the global search, which is actually quite useful and quite handy when you're searching for information in NetSuite. To the right-hand side of the actual global search, you have the ability to customize shortcuts, very quick shortcuts that you can personalize, whether they're phone calls or activities or transactions. You can end up putting that in the drop-down bar. Full documentation around help. You can end up sending feedback to NetSuite as well around certain things you like, which also goes into a polling system as well to incorporate new features and functions in the coming release. So every 6 months in NetSuite, there's always an upgrade that all customers go through around the world. And those upgrades pretty much means that every customer in the world uses the same version of NetSuite. And on the right-hand side of that, you've got your username. In this case, I'm the executive called Larry Nelson, but I also have other roles as well that are tied to my email address where I've been assigned these particular roles. So in the actual roles, there's different views and different capabilities and accesses that you can do with NetSuite. So here I'm the exec role, and this is the information I've got on the exec role with all the actual drop downs of access to transactions and records in NetSuite, compared to if I jump into another role, let's just say the inventory manager role, I'll therefore have a more specific role and information pertaining to that particular person. So you'll see end up with key performance indicators around inventory, around the vendor performance, around reminders specifically for that particular inventory manager role, KPI meters and scorecards and pie graphs and the like. But if I jump back into the actual executive role again, so I can keep showing you some of the UI capabilities and UI aspects of NetSuite. Every individual element that you see contained within the actual dashboard, because that's where I'm at the moment, I'm in the home dashboard, is pertaining to my role. So as Larry Nelson, who's the executive, these individual elements that I'm seeing on my dashboard are called portlets. And these portlets can be moved anywhere within the actual page, and NetSuite's smart enough to remember that for that particular role, for that particular user. So I can end up moving it back. The other great thing is I can also add additional portlets as well into my dashboard. So there could be a calendar reminder portlet. There could also be a recent records portlet that you want to drag in because you want to see the recent records you've used in NetSuite. You can bring in an analytics report if you want to. You can bring in a list of information where vendor list, customer list, transaction list. You want to also incorporate what's coming up in the new release of NetSuite. So at the moment, the new release is coming out in the next couple of months in the 2022.2 release. And then all the new features and functions that are coming out of that where you can look at the release notes. But in addition, you can actually take things away, right? You can remove elements as well if you want to. So I'm just going to move my dashboard to what it was earlier. I'll leave the calendar there and close this as well. But the other thing is I also want to be able to show you some of the actual custom portlets, custom information that you could also bring in. For instance, this is a multi-subsidiary environment of NetSuite, meaning that's a multi-company. So as a result of having multi-companies, you have the facility of being able to only have information on that dashboard pertaining to that particular subsidiary. So at the moment, I'm looking at it from a total perspective, from a consolidated perspective. So all the information here in relation to my receivables, payables, revenue, and the like is for every single company. But if I just want to see specifically Australia, I can just click on Australia, and all of a sudden my whole dashboard gets updated to incorporate what's in the Australian subsidiary around the transactions and information. So it's a cool little feature there. The other thing is KPIs are always very important. So you can end up adding more KPIs to the dashboard, whether they're standard KPIs, which is the ones that come out of the box in NetSuite. So for instance, we want to see the equity, we want to see the total inventory, what new customers we've won, and all of a sudden they'll get added to the actual KPI listing. But you'll notice here for each and every KPI, we're comparing information from one bit of KPI from a period to another period. So in this case, we're comparing this month for revenue, expenses, bank balance against last month. And then we have the ability to have it by ticking the compare button, it compares it. And then you're also able to create as a headline. And if you want to have a threshold and show you when these particular thresholds are met, you can add them as well. Now, the other thing is you can actually add custom KPIs. So these are KPIs that you can build through the Save Search capability, which is one of the reporting functions that you have in NetSuite. So you can add those as well. And they can be anything, right, that you want to add in. And once you've added it all in, you can see there's this little C there that represents that it's a custom KPI. So once you actually add them in, you can see they've all been added down the bottom. These ones up here are highlighted, and then you can end up drilling into every one of these bits of information. So we can jump into the revenue for this current period and take a look at the actual revenue, and takes us to the actual income statement, being the P&L. And we're looking at it from a consolidated view at the moment. And then you have the ability to keep drilling down to the underlying records. But if you want to be able to slice and dice this particular income statement and take a look at, okay, let's see what it looks like across the different subsidiaries as an example. At the moment, because I had the subsidiary navigator at Australia that I selected earlier, hence why I'm only seeing Australia. But if we want to change and look at the different departments in terms of the P&L by department, there you go. By department, you can look at the individual elements and then drill down to see, okay, for income, for that particular administration department, this is the actual invoice that was generated for the James Foundation. That's incorporated under the GL code for the 410. And here I am right down to the underlying invoice record. So then I can click and go back, and here I am back to the dashboard again. So you just very easy, the ability to drill in NetSuite from right from a KPI or right from any particular information, whether it's a graph as well, to the underlying actual records. So we can look at all that sort of stuff in NetSuite directly out of the box. The other great thing about NetSuite, like I said, I'm in the dashboard at the moment, being the home dashboard, but every element that you see up here, which is what we call a center, is also able to be drilled down and have its own individual dashboards as well. So if we click on sales and marketing, you'll see the sales and marketing dashboard. So the executive in this example can jump into different dashboards and look at different bits of information instead of having to try to clog it all together within the one main dashboard on the homepage. So they can have their separate dashboards, whether it's sales and marketing, expenses, financials, HR, employees, and so on and so forth. And then I've created this other one here called board metrics, right, where I'm looking at the actual board metrics that specifically is for this particular company. And you can see comparative sales compared to last month and this month, and then the KPIs and so on and so forth, and the board metrics as well. And then you can end up looking at it as trend graphs that you can easily change the periods for, whether it's monthly, quarterly, yearly, and also change the actual graph type from horizontal line chart to a horizontal bar chart, as well as one that is vertical as well. So it's pretty cool. And then you can also export it as a PNG file as an image to put it into a board report, or you can actually export the underlying information to a CSV file, and that CSV file will therefore basically have all the information, including the formulas that NetSuite would have had as well from an example summing perspective within keeping those formulas in Excel. So that's just very quickly a high level. As well as that, like I mentioned, you have the ability to also take a look at the other roles and elements and configure the other roles as well, depending on how you want your user to be. So if we just jump back into the presentation, that one page that I went through earlier, took you through the dashboards, I took you through the user interface, I took you through the roles, and here we are, all fantastically completed. Thank you. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to look at this quick video. I hope it was insightful for you. Appreciate it. You have an amazing day. Thank you.